Hey, good evening. If you're joining me here live, make sure you say something so I know that you're here. And while I'm waiting for this to be showing up in notifications, I need to look something up just really quickly. We've been crazy busy today, and normally Mondays I'm very focused on all of the education that we offer, but today my kids had dentist appointments, and so we have been out of the house all day long. So I'm coming home feeling not quite as prepared as usual, but I do have some really good information to share with you, and tonight we're going to talk about injuries. So last week we talked about wound care. I felt like I could talk too long about first aid in general, so I wanted to split it up a little bit. So last week we talked about wounds, so that's like cuts, like when we wound ourselves. So today we're going to talk about injuries, when we get injured, and not cuts, okay? Not wounds. So I realized there were some gray areas, but hopefully tonight I will separate it all out for you. And just to warn you, I'm actually spousing alone tonight, which means that my husband is gone and I am responsible for not only teaching you, but also my kids. And so actually, I can see them outside playing, so you may hear screaming. It's possible someone might come in crying, so we'll see, because it's the time of year where, honestly, my kids get injured. And so if you guys have been following us at all, you know that Lila, hey Lori, you know that Lila, my youngest daughter, is the one that seems to always be the one that gets hurt. And right now this year, the only thing that she's really done to herself is her knees are constantly getting scraped up really, really badly. Not just little scrapes, like pretty bad scrapes. And so as soon as one heals, then it's scraped again. So her poor knees are getting pretty damaged. And so anyways, hopefully that doesn't happen. Last year, the first week of June, let me go back 2 years ago, her injury was a broken foot, so she was casted all summer. So I got to learn all about essential oils and broken bones, which we're going to talk about tonight. And then the following year, she fell and smacked her face into the kitchen cabinet at a pretty high speed and force and knocked out a tooth that was not ready to come out, root and all. And so today we went to the dentist and took an x-ray, and she's got a tooth coming in. So she's been a year without a tooth, and so hopefully one will be poking in pretty soon for her so that she will have two beautiful teeth in the front of her face. And she's in here, she knows I'm talking about her. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about, injuries to the skeletal system, so bones. We're going to talk about inflammation, because all injuries are going to bring on an inflammatory response. That's very, very normal. The problem is as you become more injured and as you get older, or if you live the kind of lifestyle where you're not really giving your body the support it needs for proper recovery, then we have what's called a cycle of inflammation that we have a hard time breaking out of. And so it's really, really important where if you have an injury, even for your children, to start them out young, giving their body what they need to recover so that over time they don't end up in this cycle of inflammatory response. And then we have joints. So sometimes we injure ourselves. When I used to work at Home Depot, one of the biggest injuries I got was rotator cuffs. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about muscle injuries. Do we have any people that like to work out and are constantly injuring their muscles? I need to put my hand down because that's not true about me. But we do injure our muscles just by doing sometimes normal repetitive stuff that's maybe not good motion. And then we're going to talk about pain too. Okay, so we're just going to move through this. I really wish I had notes that I can put on the screen, but I don't. And one of these days when I have a ton of time, maybe I need to hire an assistant. I'll be typing all this stuff up for you guys so you have notes. But just so you know, a lot of this information comes from the Modern Essentials book, okay? This right here, Modern Essentials. If you don't have that book, I highly recommend that you get it, because I think all of the protocols I have for injuries are actually coming from this book tonight. So it's all in there for you to read. So get it so you don't have to worry about, you know, me putting information out for you tonight after I talk about it. So let's talk about the skeletal system first. So basically that's like broken bones, okay? So Lila, she fractured her foot, so we're going to talk about fractures. You got broken bones. So pretty much any injury that involves the skeletal system, okay? Now I'm going to try my best to keep this as scientific as possible and then share a couple of testimonies that I have experienced. So I actually did a video a couple years ago on what to do when you have a cast. Like, how do you put oils on? I get the question all the time. You know, because Lila broke the bones in her toes, so she had a cast that her little toes poked out of, and it went all the way up to her knee. And so how do you get the oils on there? Well, we put them under her toes, okay? The little parts of her toes that were exposed as much as we could, and then we put them underneath the, like in the joint of the knee, like underneath. We call it the knee pit, but we put it there. And so when the body is trying to recover and heal, it's already pushing the immune system or the inflammatory response to that part of the body. And so when we put oils in that pathway, they're just going to get picked up on that pathway or on that highway. Like it's just going to go there. So you don't really have to worry about getting oils right on the injury. As long as you get them as close as possible, you'll be good to go. Because as much as I'm a big fan of frontier medicine, I feel like when you do break a bone, you should get a cast so that you have the immobile, that you can, you know, make it so it's not mobile or you're not continuing to re-injure it. So obviously, 2 oils you want to have on hand are Deep Blue, because Deep Blue is going to be across the board good for all pain, and then frankincense as well. So there is a very specific broken bone protocol, so you might want to write this down, or if someone is joining me live, feel free to type in the comments so that somebody just has it. So there are actually 3 steps to this. The first step is you do 1 drop each lemongrass, clove, eucalyptus, and melaleuca. Okay, and you apply those very gently to the location, and you can do that once a day. And then the second thing that you do is actually at night before bed, you do cypress and wintergreen. Now, it's not specific on how many drops, but I will tell you cypress and wintergreen don't really have much of a sensation. It's not like they're cold or they're warm or they're spicy. So cypress and wintergreen, you can do a drop each, 2 drops each, whatever you feel. It doesn't say to use fractionated coconut oil, because remember, fractionated coconut oil causes oils to sit in the dermal layer, and we actually want these oils to go down into the body. So we want to get those oils down in there. But if you use too many oils, the skin won't soak them up very fast, and then they evaporate out into the air. So just keep that in mind. And then when you wake up in the morning, you're going to do helichrysum, oregano, and balance. So remember, oregano is spicy, but if it's on a spot of your body, well, you can handle the oregano. Don't feel like you have to dilute it, or you can use the Oregano Touch blend, which is not spicy at all for the skin, for most people. Okay, so that's for the skeletal system. Now, if you have bone pain, which you would with a broken bone, the oils that are kind of specific to the bones are going to be a blend called Rescuer, which is in the kids blends. Yeah, believe it or not, guys, you can use the kids blends for you too. We have wintergreen, and then we have juniper berry, and then any of the fur oils. So we have Douglas fir, we have Siberian fir, and if you have white fur from back when we had that available, you can use that too. Okay, so the next thing is cartilage. So when we have an injury, if it's deep enough, oftentimes the cartilage is involved, especially for sports injuries, or when we get older and we try to be sportive, then that's usually when we have cartilage injuries. So 2 oils that support the cartilage injury healing process is sandalwood, helps to regenerate that cartilage, and then fir oils help with the inflammation of that. So this works for anybody who just has cartilage pain, which then takes me into joints, okay? So basically you would use the same oils for joints that you would for cartilage pain, because it's the same thing. But you might want to add Roman chamomile. Okay, so then having the Deep Blue polyphenol complex on hand would be really helpful as well. So joint soreness, you would use 3 drops each, eucalyptus, peppermint, and rosemary. You add them to a 5 milliliter bottle and add fractionated coconut oil. Let me grab one of those for you. You can see what it looks like. Well, I thought I had one handy, but I don't. This is a 10 ml, so 5 ml is half the size, okay? All right, so 3 drops each of eucalyptus, peppermint, and rosemary in a 5 ml, and then fill it up with fractionated coconut oil. Apply that onto joint soreness, and then you can add an ice pack over that. Okay, so then there are 2 particular joint injuries I wanted to talk about. One was rotator cuff. That is when you do something to this up here and you find it's really hard to lift your arm up past a certain point. A really good example of unable to brush your hair. Frozen shoulder does that for you as well, which is the other one I'm going to talk about. Unable to take your shirt off. That was one thing that I noticed that it really hurts. So, oils for that are going to be wintergreen, deep blue, again, the Rescuer blend, lemongrass, peppermint, the fir oils. That's a lot. I actually was able to do really well with just peppermint. So, and then frozen shoulder. And also I just want to remind you that these are 2 things that I've heard that when the injury gets really bad and it's ignored for long enough, you can end up having to have surgery for these things. So I'm kind of in the camp of let's use our essential oil so we don't get to that point. But for frozen soldier, did I say soldier? I meant shoulder. It's been a very long day. Frozen shoulder. Again, we want to use deep blue, the fir oils, and then let me break down some of these others. So lemongrass is good for supporting torn or pulled ligaments. And then we have basil, believe it or not. That's the oil I add to spaghetti. I just did that last night. That's good for muscle spasms. And then wintergreen, again, is going to support the bones. And then we want to use the blend Rescuer if you have that. And then oregano helps support muscle flexibility. And then peppermint is going to help soothe the nerves. And then I had a protocol for tennis elbow, but I ran out of paper to make notes on. So if anybody has questions about tennis elbow, I can grab a screenshot and send it to you. Or post it in the comments. Okay, so we've talked about skeletal, cartilage, and joints. Let's talk about muscles. Okay, so there are 2 recipes, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 recipes I'm going to share with you. And if someone wants to put the notes in the comments, feel free. Okay, so we have aches and pains, muscles, aches and pains, which honestly, that's normal part of life for some of us. But you can do something about it if it's an injury or if it's an ongoing thing. It's pretty simple. 10 drops of deep blue in a 15 fractionated coconut oil topped up there, or just use the deep blue touch. I really like the deep blue without the coconut oil, but the thing is, again, we want to keep those oils on the surface, which is our dermal and then our muscular layers. And by using fractionated coconut oil, it's going to help it go in slower and help it last longer as well. And then you just want to gently massage that oil in. If you have a massage therapist you go to, you can take your little roller bottle to them and have them use it as well. And then we have cramps and Charlie horses. Those are like the worst. And so we can use in a 15 ml, 5 drops lemongrass, 5 drops peppermint, top it with fractionated coconut oil, and then gently massage into the area. I've actually had it work really well. If in a pinch, you can also grab past tense for that, which by the way, you get for free when you order 200 PV this month. It's June 2019, if you're watching a replay. So ligaments. Again, we're going to talk about lemongrass. We got 10 drops of lemongrass and a 5 ml, so a little bit smaller, and then you top it with fractionated coconut oil, and then you apply and then put the ice pack over that. Okay, so that's lemongrass. And then a couple of other, like sprain and strain. I got some oil suggestions there. So for sprains, marjoram. I actually like to add frankincense to that, even though it wasn't in the list. Marjoram, lemongrass, the fir oils, and rescuer again. And then for strains, when you strain a muscle, lemongrass, deep blue, rescuer, and then ginger is good for circulation. So do you guys notice a theme? We're using a lot of deep blue, a lot of lemongrass, a lot of fir oils. I'm going to break down why those specific oils are good for these kinds of injuries here in just a moment. And then the last thing I want to talk about is pain. So we have lots of options when it comes to pain, but again, it depends on the kind of pain that, that we're dealing with. So if you have pain, deep blue. So just make sure you never run out of deep blue, okay? And then lavender, so they're kind of on a spectrum. Deep blue is going to be a lot stronger. Lavender is going to be on the bottom scale, but you'd be surprised. Lavender is really good for things like pain that is like a smashed finger, a jammed finger. We use it a lot for the kids. We've used it for teething. I mean, it's just a really gentle oil, and it packs kind of a punch on the pain reliever scale. So those two oils I like to have on hand. So let's talk about the common oils that I talked about. And I just really wanted to pull out 5 that I thought were most interesting. So obviously deep blue. I want to have that one on hand because it's all the oils that are in it, there's research to show that it supports the inflammatory response. You can use that oil every day if you have an ongoing pain issue. And then lemongrass. So there are some studies on lemongrass, and I pulled the ones that I thought were important for us tonight. Not only is it good for tissue repair, but there is a study that shows that it's got that its properties are anti-inflammatory in human skin cells. So skin cells, okay? So any kind of inflammation that involves the skin and even cartilage is in there as well. Now, wintergreen has methyl salicylate in it. It's its main ingredient, which is also a main ingredient in most pain relievers. So what that particular ingredient does, which is why it's in our pain relievers, is it inhibits the chemical messenger that is involved in the inflammatory response. It's kind of like, when you don't kill the messenger. In this case, wintergreen is killing the messenger. So that's what it's supposed to actually do. Now, keep in mind, when you pop a Tylenol or an aspirin, those things are designed to do, like it's proven, it's like they've done so many studies on it, so it's proven to do it. And that's the way it's formulated. With essential oils, since they're not formulated in a lab, then they support the process and not force the change. So wintergreen, and keep in mind, we have to keep applying these oils too. So it may wear off after a couple of hours. It's okay to reapply. As where with a Tylenol, you can only take those, every 4 hours, whatever it is on the instructions. And of course, they tear up your body as well. So we want to use our oils instead if we can. And then oregano. So I thought this one was really interesting because when we use oregano, we think of like its antibiotic support, its antifungal support. But what we don't know about oregano is that it also alters the signal pathways in inflammation in the skin. So it's a great injury oil, and it was the one that goes with bone injuries. So with the helichrysum and the oregano imbalance in the mornings, okay? And then eucalyptus. So I thought this was really interesting because I see eucalyptus in pain, and I hear about people using eucalyptus in pain. I actually don't use it in pain a lot. It's not the first oil that I think of. But eucalyptus has analgesic properties that are similar to those that are in morphine. And it can also, there's some studies that show it possibly depresses the central nervous system, which is when we've got those pains. And I kind of wish I would have had a eucalyptus when I've had like nervous system pains. But knowing this, I would like to actually experiment with myself if I ever get sick again. It's been kind of a while now since I've been using Copaiba every day, but I'd like to try and see how eucalyptus handles things like body aches. So those are some of the oils that I thought were really, really interesting. Okay, so I have a question I want to see if I can answer. Okay, so we have a broken tailbone last year, and now we have leg pain, spasms, jerking. Haven't found the right combination to relieve the pain and spasms. Okay, so number one, let me just talk about some other things other than oils. When you have an injury, I highly recommend going to a chiropractor. And if it's an injury that's really, really bad, then maybe even a physical therapist. So I'll just use myself as an example. I've always gone to the chiropractor for everything. When my kids fall down, we go to the chiropractor because if they, injure something on their face or their body. One of my girls was always falling, and every time she was hitting her head a lot. So we would take her to the chiropractor on a regular basis to kind of get all that straightened out. And then my son, when he fell down the stairs when he was 3, took him to the chiropractor, making sure that nothing is malaligned. Because here's the thing. You don't take care of your body, and then you get to be an adult, and then you have chronic pain somewhere in your body that really could have been prevented had you gone to the chiropractor early on. Sometimes, not always. So with a tailbone injury, I highly recommend get to the chiropractor. Also, all those other things that are going along with that tailbone injury signal some sort of nerve issue as well. So I injured my pubic bone when I birthed my 3rd child. Did not know it until I was pregnant with my 4th child, and then I developed a condition called SPD, which is, don't even ask me to say the words, but it's like a pubic bone dysfunction, because your pubic bone is like this, and there's cartilage in the center, and so mine was doing this, and it was kind of split a little bit more than usual. You can actually feel the split with your fingers. So that was an injury for me. And because of that, I was having knee pain. I was having a lot more restless leg syndrome when I was pregnant with the 4th. And I had a ton more nerve pain, like jumping, spasming nerve pain. So I was using the oils that we're talking about for those particular things. So going back to cartilage, because your tailbone is attached to your body by cartilage. So cartilage, we want to use our sandalwood, our fir oils, and then we want to use the oils for the muscles to help bring those muscles together and help support that process. And so you can do like the lemongrass for the ligament support that's back there. For me, when there's an injury, it really helps for me to Google search that part of the body so that I can see visually all the things that are happening. So when I finally, for example, saw where the pubic bone was, what it was attached to, then I was able to see, okay, I need to support the ligaments. I need to support those tissues. And so that's what I did. So that might help as well. But definitely get to a chiropractor, and if it's an injury that's that old, use your oils and maybe even look into some physical therapy as well for some exercises that are going to help strengthen that part of your body. Okay, so that's all I had for you guys tonight. If you have any questions, that you can feel free to post them in the comments, and we can answer them as we go along. And I hope this was helpful for you. So have a good night, and I'm going to just double check to make sure. Okay, yep, no more questions, but you can ask them in the comments and I will get the notification. All right, guys, so next week we're going to talk about, does anybody remember? I don't know that I remember. Let's see here. Next week we are talking about, traveling with your essential oils, because this is summer vacation time. And I've got some really good ideas. Where is it? I didn't bring it, but you guys will see next week. If you don't follow me already on Facebook or Instagram, it'll be a complete surprise for you. But we're going to talk about traveling with your essential oils, and that's going to include things like outings with your kids, camping, just ways to like store them that maybe you weren't thinking about. And then the last week, we're going to talk about summer skin. So we're going to talk about sunburns. We're going to talk about keeping your skin from getting dry and cracked in the summer, or just keeping it healthy in the sun. Okay? All right, guys, have a really great evening.